Hi guys, welcome back to Thorough Capping. It's Dave again, and hitting you with yet another video. What did I want to do? I wanted to put one video up that dealt with a route race, using the Brisnet pace shape numbers here that we used in the last video on that Finger Lakes Race 8. That's one of the videos I will not be taking down due to the fact that it's more of an instructional video rather than a analyze a race type video. Same with this one. This one's going to stay up. This is a video on, this is Penn National Race 3 for tomorrow. Tomorrow being July 12th, 2023. And the first thing I'm going to do here is, rid of that, is I'm going to change this first distance here to, in the formulas up on top, I'm going to change it to a 2640 rather than the 1320 because the first call is after the half and not the quarter. Copy, paste in here, and then drag down. So we're looking at 2,640 feet rather than 1320, where in a sprint race we would be using a quarter mile for the first call. In a route race, the first call is the half time, okay? So we have the first one started. We have a presser, staying even in class. Okay, this is an optional claimer, 16,000. Same thing, coming out of. So the first fraction is a 47 and 1, which equates to a 47 and 2. But here's the thing. I'm not going to use the 1C. I'm only going to use the 2C. Okay, whereas in the sprint races we use the first call, second call. I'm going to use the 2C here at 111 and 3 because that's the second call, and 47 and 1 is actually the first call. All right, so if I go 47 and 1, I want to subtract 3 from that. So when I subtract 3 from 47 and 1, I get a 46.3. When I convert that to tenths, I get a 46.6. And then all I got to do now is, he was 6 lengths out, multiply that by 10, and that's a minus 60 at the first call. Okay? So again, we're not using in routes, which those of you that have a grasp on this already know that we do not use the quarter time, but this 1C now applies to the first call, 47.1. Now let's move to the second call. This data was from a different race, which is a 111.3. So a 47 and 1 to a 111.3 is a 12.4 to a minute, plus another 11 is a 23.7, which equates to a 28 and 2. Well, I want to subtract 5 from that, which is a full second, so that's a 27 and 2, which goes in as a 27 and 4 in tenths. And as you can see, there was actually a 4.5 lengths gained from 6 to 1.5. So that's a positive 45 there. And then for the last segment of the race, we got a 111.3 to a 139 and 4. Okay, that's going to be a 28 and 1 difference. And we're not going to do anything other than just convert that to tenths. That's a 28 and 2. And as you can see here, he ended up losing a length, which is minus 10. And then this was a mile 70. So I want to go and I want to change this to 1520 in the formula because there's 1,520 feet in a mile 70 yards. Now, for those that aren't aware, I went and added a tab to for those of you that have purchased Thorough Capping Deluxe Tutorial, I added a tab on the bottom that's titled third fraction distance in feet. And I have it all equated here. And this was by request from a viewer. So, as you can see, the mile 70 yards, I use 1520 as my distance in the formula. All right, let's look at the second horse. The 2 horse, we have pace line coming out of another mile 70 race. So what I can do is I can go over here and I can just drag this down, grab the plus sign here, drag it down, and that's going to equal 1520 as well to start. Now let's take a look at the pace calls. First of all, this horse is an early presser. He's actually dropping in class, so note that there. And he's coming off a 48.4. Okay, so 48.4 minus 5. Okay, so again, the leader at the time was running 5 lengths slower than normal at the distance. So we're going to go and we're going to subtract 5. That's going to be a 47.4, which equates to a 47.8. And then he was 7 1/4 lengths. That's 7.25 times 10. He was minus 72.50 out at the first call. At the second call, we have a 48.4 to a 113. Well, 48.4 to a minute would be an 11-1 plus 13-4, which would be 24-8, which in fifths equates to a 25-3. And we also want to subtract 5, which is a full minute, which is a 20, comes out to a 24-3, or a 24 6/10. And we also looking at 2 lengths lost here, 7 1/4 out to 9 1/4, so that's a minus 20 for this horse. And I'm only going to do, being that the lesson is really mainly focusing on adjusting to these calls, I'm going to just do the first and second call of these horses. I'm going to pause. I'll finish the latter part of the race, and then we'll take a look at the pace grid. Okay, the 3 horse I have tossed. The 4 horse, we got to reach back a little bit for the pace line. Being that the last 2 before that were on dirt and synthetic, today is on turf. And this is a mile and 16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward here to the last fraction. And a mile and 16th would be a, and I know you guys can't see up above here, but when you click this, the formula will come up in the cursor box up here. You just change this to a 1650. Because there's 1,650 feet in that extra quarter plus the extra 16th. And again, you can see that from the grid here that I added to the thorough grid, that a mile 16th, you use 1650 as your final distance. All right, let's get back to what we were doing, and we'll look at the 4 horse. The 4 horse is also an EP. Okay, he is moving up in class. He's from this race here. I mean, he's moving up in class no matter what, but from the race that we're using as a pace line, this is a step up, so I'm going to put a U. And we're looking at a 48-3 for the first fraction. And it's a 0, so we're going to leave it right at a 48-3 or a 48-6 when we put it in our grid. And he was out by 1 length, so that's minus 10. All right, we'll move on to the second call. We have a 48-3 to a 113-1. 48-3, again, this is the trick. Always do it to a minute first. It's a lot easier. Think about 60 seconds. 48-3 to 60 would be 11-2, and then just add this 13-1 on. So that'd be a 24-3 in fifths, and we want to subtract 3. As you can see, the minus 3 here. So this would be actually a 24 flat. And he didn't gain or lose any lengths, so he stays at a 0. We'll move down to the 8. His running style sustained. His class is, see what we drew up, pulled as a pace line, his last race out. That was the only turf race I can do. I was tempted to toss this horse, but I figured, you know what, I'll just leave him in there just to see, based on the fact that we are going to be subtracting here, to see where he figures out in this grid. Okay, the class is even. We're looking at a 47-1. we're going to subtract 3 from a 47-1, which is going to give us a 46-3, or a 46-6 in tenths. And he was actually 7.5 lengths out. So that's a minus 75. We move on over here to the second. And we got a 47-1 to a 111.3. 47-1 to a minute is actually a 12-4 plus another 11.3. That's a 23-7, which equates to a 24-2 in fifths. And then we got to subtract 5. So we can go make that a 23-2. So you could do the subtracting and adding after you figured out. Actually, yeah, after you've added, after you figured out the times. So again, if anybody's confused there, we have a 47-1 to a 111.3. That gives us a 12-4 plus 11-3. It's a 23-7, which equates to a 24-2, because we're dealing with fifths of seconds right now. Subtract the 5, that's a 23-2, and when you put it in the grid, that's when you change it to tenths. Okay, so that's a 23-4, and he actually gained a length and a quarter, which is a 1.25 or a 12.5 once you do the multiplication. And then finally we have one more to look at. The 9 horse, who's also an EP, like a few others, coming out of the same class level. We have a 47-1 first call, minus 3, which makes it a 46-3, which equates to a 46-6. This might even be the same race that the last one came out of. He was 7 lengths out, so we're going to give him minus 70. Go to the second call. Second call, we have a 12-4 plus 11-3. That's a 23-7. Yep, that's a 24-2. Minus the 5 is a 23-2. When you change it to tenths, to 23-4. And this horse actually gained 3.75 lengths, or 37.50 length gained. Okay. So that's where we're looking at our first and second pace velocities when we incorporate the pace shape numbers that BrizNet provides in their forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up the last fraction for all these horses, and we'll come back and we'll evaluate the grid. All right, I finished up the third segment, guys. So what we'll do is we're going to take a look and evaluate this grid. For the first segment, velocity wise, we have the 1 horse showing up with top velocity. I'm going to make that a blue. Now we have a few others in 55, which could be close to the pace. All right, so we got the 1, the 9, and the 8. Now we move on to second call, and we're looking at the 9 horse with the top velocity, second fraction velocity of 58. And the only one that I'm really going to go, I'm going to go and do the 56.94, because I want to at least have 2 identified here and not just 1. But there is a big difference between what's going on here with the 9 and the rest of them. And then I look at the late, we have the 2 horse at 54.68, but we have this 9 horse right behind at 53.9. Then we'll do the 1, 53.55. All right, so if I had to go and when I eyeball this, the 9's going to get the nod for me. I'm going to keep in mind that this is a route race on the turf, so I am going to favor more what's over here rather than what's over here. But at the same time, this 8 horse shows close to the pace, shows a move, middle move, and he's not far behind over here. So I'm going to, again, because it's a route race, I'm going to rank the 8 as my second. So I'm going to go 9, 8. I'll give the speed horse the nod for third, which is the 1. And then I got the 2 horse showing up here in sustained. Or I'm sorry, in third fraction velocity, I'm going to go 2. So 9, 8, 1, 2 would be my rankings up here for the first section of the pace grid. And then now when I look at the averages, we'll see how much the averages conflict with what I saw in the pace grid and how much they concur. So we don't need the factor X because this is a route race and that's a sprint factor. So I'm just going to get rid of that. The 9 horse has the top early pace, despite the fact that he's not the top at the first call. But remember, early pace is averaging the first call and the second call together. So we have a 56.58, the 8 horse, and that's as far as I'm going to go there. Sustained pace. Sustained pace, which is the average of the second and third, also goes to the 9. And then I'll give the 8 some credit there. And again, I'm not going to go any further here. I will go 3 in the averages, though. Overall average, we have a 56.29, 55.60, and then the 3 is actually, or the 4 horse is actually my third at a 58. And I could very well label the 4 here and here as well. But I'm going to go narrow this down to 3 here, and that's the 9, the 8, and the 4, where the 2 doesn't really show up. So we go 9, 8, 4 up here. So if I was using just velocity grids, and that's it, 9 and 8 would be my plays, 8 and 9. And let's check out the morning lines on these 2 horses. The 9 is actually 8 to 1 on the morning line. So it should be a little interesting here. And that was the one, no, that wasn't the one I said I was going to toss. That was the 8. The 8 horse was the one I said I was thinking about tossing, but the 8 is a 15 to 1. So we're looking at 2 right now. We're looking at 2 long shots, figuring well in our velocity grids. We'll see where they stand once I finish putting in the qualitative factors and the matrix system ratings, the target ability, target buyer, or I should say target Brisnet speed, because we're not using daily racing form, and then the top speed figures out of the last 3. And then what I'll do is I will come back and we'll do an overall analysis of this. Okay, guys, I finished up the other factors, and when we look at the qualitative end of it, nothing shows here for the 8 and the 9. Trainer stats, the 1 horse and the 4 horse. Also, the 1's coming off a wide move on the turn last out, which is why I have it highlighted in blue. So he's automatically going to get my first in that rank. I ranked 142 for ranking number 1. When I look at the matrix system factors, 9 horse starts to show a little bit now. Okay, the 1 horse is actually the target horse by 1 point, 80 over 79. The 9 horse is actually the ability horse by 1 point, 81 over 80. And they both tie in the average, because when you average them out, they're both going to come to an 80. And then the 4 horse shows up in the ability. And if I wanted to go one more deeper in the target, I'm sorry, the target. If I wanted to go one more deeper in ability, he'd show up there. So the rankings there were 1, 9, 4, and I'm favoring the 1 over the 9 simply because he is my target horse. I will favor target over ability, even though they're very tight. In my target speed rating combination, we have the 1 horse at a 149 and we have the 9 at a 148. So again, very close. Followed by the 4. So we have a 194 ranking there. And when I look at my top speed figure out of the last 3 races, the 2 horse is actually 74, followed by the 4, 73, and then the 1 and the 9 were close enough for me to give him third. So when you look at my overall grid here, my final eval grid, I'm seeing 9s, I'm seeing 1s, I'm seeing 4, and I'm seeing 2. So I'm going to really keep an eye out on this 9. Now the 1 horse, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 1 horse is the morning line fave, the 5-2, and the 4 horse is actually 2-1 morning line. So I'm hoping to maybe beat those 2 with the 9. We'll see when the time comes if I play it or how I would play it. But I'm gonna rank these right now as 1, 9, 4, and 2. And I'm using the 4 over the 2 because the 2 doesn't show up in two of the 6 rankings, whereas the 4 shows up in 5 of the 6. So 1, 9, 4, 2 would be my final rankings there. And we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for tuning in.